Good morning and welcome to the 445 Productive Through Joy show with your host and your boy, Dr. Michael Datcher. The show airs each weekday morning, hella early AF at 4:45 a.m. here on YouTube's Michael Datcher channel, then 4:45 p.m. on Facebook Live. Today, guys, we're talking about compassion, an extremely important topic and how it relates to productivity. So thanks for being here. If you are new, you can go to productivethroughjoy.com to see about us. We speak to groups, schools, and organizations about being productive through joy. Of course, this is happening online now, given the COVID-19 crisis. We have a series of really innovative and productive workshops and presentations. So reach out to us and we will reach out back to you. All right. I should also say a few words about myself personally. This is your host and your boy, Dr. Michael Datcher, author of the New York Times bestseller Raising Fences, author of the acclaimed historical novel Americas, author of the recently Pulitzer Prize nominated Animating Black and Brown Liberation, a Theory of American Literatures. I'm the board president of a great nonprofit called The World Stage here in Los Angeles in the Crenshaw District. My educational background is UC Berkeley as an undergrad, my master's from UCLA, and my PhD in English literature from the University of California at Riverside. Guys, I'm an expert at being productive, right? I don't say that to brag or boast. I say it because people are almost always surprised to learn of that level of productivity, given how crazy my own personal story is. I am the product of a young girl who was sexually assaulted at age 16 and gave birth to me at age 17. As a result of that assault, then I was subsequently given up for adoption to an amazing single divorcee. Yet, at the time, no biological father, no adopted father. Difficult times for the young MD. But as Cool Modi famously said, "How you like me now?" Right? And if I can be this productive and be so through joy, I am believing, we are believing that many people can have a similar experience in their own lane, obviously. And that is what completely inspires this show, because we know it's not where you're from, it's where you're about to go. So thanks for being here with me on this journey. Let's dive into the topic. So we're talking today about compassion. And point one is you want to know, as we'll talk about in a second, that you want to have make compassion aspirational, right? At times, people, because of this term of how the so-called bleeding heart liberal has been demonized, as if caring is somehow a bad thing. And that's just how people can language attacks effectively. And so now people, first, the demonization of the word liberal has been so effective that people had to actually change the word to progressive, which I'm fine with. I'm progressive. That's okay. But I think also that we have to also embrace the idea that we are liberal, if that's who we are, that we are liberal, that we have compassion, that we are bleeding heart liberals. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. We just celebrated Easter, although I'm not sure if you're a Christian. That's not what I call myself. I just believe in God. But Jesus was absolutely a liberal, for sure. He was a compassionate, in fact, he was the ultimate bleeding heart liberal. And so I offer that context to say that, listen, you want to be aspirational about compassion. It's okay to be compassionate. It's actually a great thing to actually care about people around you. And I think in these times of the current crisis, we are having to reflect on that. Compassion is good, right? Which goes right into point two. And compassion is also good for business, as I'm sure you know, if you live in the real world. In probably the last decade, I think, in earnest, I'm sure because of focus groups, many businesses larger corporations have figured out that buyers like to support businesses that support and give back, right? So there's been many examples of this, but I think the most commonly known, because it's the most clever appeal to this idea, is Honda's random acts of kindness, where Honda Motors will go to some football team or some place and do something randomly kind. I'm sure this is a nationwide campaign. It's certainly big here in California. And that's probably the most practical and most effective, and it's kind of a fun thing too. They do these videos. It's kind of a fun situation. And they do random acts of kindness because they know that buyers like to support people who give back and organizations that give back. So kindness, compassion is good for business. I am not saying to do it just because the reason maybe behind is doing it, although we shouldn't judge their motives. Um, I am saying that compassion is just good for business. And so the key though is to keep don't do it just because it's good for business, do it because it's the right thing to do. And the outcome of doing the right thing is that it's good for business. And that's the thing we have to kind of work at. We help people think through this as well, is that you want to do good. And because doing good works, good things come, for example, financially or at a corporate level, in terms of your profit margin, good things happen when you do good. But we should not do that just because it increases our profit margin. Do it because it's good. That's the key. You don't want to get caught up in the bottom line thinking that'll take care of itself, guaranteed. Which goes right to point three. The thing about compassion, because now people are figuring out that compassion actually works. We've always known that, because compassion makes sense, because compassion is rooted in love, and love always makes sense. The struggle now, that because compassion is becoming mainstream for business, especially now in the COVID-19 crisis. Three is you want to be able to keep, I'll just say it in the most almost cliche terms, keep your heart as pure as possible, meaning keep your motives pure. I mean, in the back of your mind that doing good is good for business, but really try to focus on doing good because it's good to do good. You feel good when you're doing good to people, when you're serving people. I think about the times when we help someone whose car broken down the side of the road. I pushed so many random people's cars, jumped out of my car, pushing people's cars down the street. As a sidebar, because I've got two daughters, and at times, of course, my kids are with me when I'm doing this. They're like, what are you doing? We're going to help this person push their car right now. Right. So my oldest daughter, who at the time was a teenager, she'd be like, Dad, but she'd get out the car with Dad. We pull to the side, run to the car that needs to be pushed. And me and my daughter would push the car out the street, right? And so that's the fringe benefit, is that when you exercise, demonstrate, articulate in terms of your life compassion in front of your kids, if you have children or your loved ones, you exemplify, you demonstrate a lifestyle of compassion, and you pass it on to those in your spheres of influence. And I cannot express how important that is. So my children, for example, just as a sidebar, are super compassionate. It's not just me. I'm sure they have that in their DNA somewhere as well. But they grew up with someone who was a compassionate person, not just in terms of talking about it, but doing it in many, many and sundry ways, right? So we are able to help our kids, because if you do have kids, you can talk to a kid all day long, and they may not hear any of it. But when you live it, when you demonstrate it, that works way more effectively, at least for most kids. That's my experience. And so when you live a life of compassion, you can really help your children and others in your spheres of influence become more compassionate. And what does that do? If we all take that attitude, it makes for a more compassionate world. This is not rocket science. Boom goes the dynamite. Guys, we'll see you this afternoon at 4:45 p.m. Until then, let's talk about it and be about it. Deuces.